Thank you. I see we have quorum, and I call this regular Policy and Priorities Committee meeting to order. The first order of business is the adoption of the agenda. I see that the agenda for April 22nd, 2014, the regular meeting of Policy and Priorities Committee be adopted, moved by Councillor King and seconded by Councillor Kersey. All those in favor? My apologies. Apparently it's Councillor Durley. Any amendments? All in favor? Carried. Next is a disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof by members. Are there anyone with a pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest? None to declare?
None, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. That will be reflected in the minutes. Into new business. The first item on the agenda is with respect to 5.1, respectful workplace policy. The motion by Councillor Durley and seconded by Councillor King is that the issue summary report respectful workplace policy be received, and that Policy and Priorities Committee recommend that Council approve the respectful workplace policy as part of the health and safety policy suite. Discussion. Comments by anyone? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this, just for clarity, this is the policy that was worked on with assistance from the region, is that correct?
Nancy. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the policy was developed by reviewing the policy of the region and also other municipalities throughout Ontario.
Excellent.
And compiling what seemed to fit for Pelham.
Thank you. Comment on it, thanks. Looks like it's a great policy, covers off some of the items that are important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any others? I have a few comments, if I may.
You're chair.
I'm chair, so I can do that, can't I?
All right.
Oh, the power. Oh, the power.
The whole committee. For tonight.
That's the only way it works.
Got to remain impartial, Richard.
Thank you. I have just a couple of comments, and they are not with respect to the substance, but rather to some of the words. The first of those is with respect to complainant, the definition of complainant. My initial reading of this indicated that one is a complainant by this definition if a person believes that they are a victim of discrimination. But in further reading the definitions, I see that in fact, discrimination is only one of several issues that they can be victim of. They can also be a victim of disrespectful conduct or harassment or violence. So what I'd like to do is just as it's more words than anything else. It's wordsmithing, that perhaps the complainant be identified as one, including the others as well, and that maybe within the definitions, a definition of discrimination also appear, so that it's clear that a complainant can come forward with respect to any of those issues. It's just wordsmithing. I don't think it attacks the content of anything. I have a couple of other comments, but under confidentiality, it's recognized that it can be extremely difficult to come forward with a complaint against a colleague and that it can be devastating to be wrongly convicted of harassment. It's also devastating to be wrongly accused. So I wonder whether we might just include those words to expand that, unless anyone has comment. And one last comment with regard to the item properly discharged supervision. I think it's absolutely essential, of course, that supervisors be allowed to carry out their duties and that not be considered an issue of complaint, as long, of course, as the supervisors also know that they are to carry out their tasks as supervisors respectfully, and that being supervisor doesn't give license to anything other than that. So I don't know whether some words might be put in with respect to that.
Chair, just, I don't know if you want a response from staff on that, and I know she's busy typing, but.
Keeping track of everything to be added.
So yes, a comment would
Or
be
the
good.
CAO?
Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong if I'm speaking for you, Madam Clerk, but the points are well taken, and that will include the suggestions that you have, and then I would recommend that council approve this to go to council with the changes that you so mentioned.
Thank you. I don't think this requires any more than that.
As long as there's consensus amongst all of us, and
And that's what I'm looking for.
opposition. Yep, there is.
Is there support for those changes? But in that case, let me call the question with respect to the policy with those suggestions. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
My favorite uniforms. I think it should be Giorgio Armani.
5.2. With respect to the uniform policy, that the issue summary report uniform policy be received. The Policy and Priorities Committee recommend to Council that uniform policy be approved. This is moved by Councillor Lane and seconded by Councillor King. Yes, Councillor Kersey first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, and I don't know who I should direct this to because I'm not sure who developed it. In one section, it says that all employees are required to wear a uniform and be presentable and all of that. And then there's a couple of paragraphs down, it said is required that all eligible employees must wear long pants and a shirt of their choice. Is it really that? Is that really what we want to say, is a shirt of their choice from within the uniform?
Sorry,
Madam Treasurer?
excuse me, through you. It is, there was a requirement that they must wear blue pants that are similar to the pants that the full-time employees are gonna get. So this bottom paragraph was just referring to the casuals and the part-timers. And they would be required to purchase a shirt of the town's, with the emergency screening on it and so forth. So we'll correct that wording.
Councillor Kersey?
Madam Treasurer, the line that I was referring to was one above that, all casual and seasonal part-time, where it says it is required that all eligible employees must wear long pants and a shirt of their choice. This policy also applies to permanent part-time employees. And then it goes on to talk about the casual and the seasonal, and I understand that.
Okay, yeah, I understand where this came in. We had put in there previously that staff would be able to wear shorts. That would be a uniform type short. But going through WSIB and the Health and Safety Act, it was determined that they cannot wear shorts while working in the field regardless. So we changed that line to say they must wear long pants, but it means the long pants of the uniform. So that their shorts were no longer a option for them. So, but we can clear that up.
How about the shirt?
And the shirt.
And the shirt has to be of the uniform, yeah.
A uniform, so maybe we just for clarity.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'd like to ask what initiated this particular policy? Would be my first question. No, and I can agree with the fact that it's nice to have everybody looking alike, but I have a number of concerns, if I might. First one is, are we buying these uniforms for all full-time outside employees and/or arena employees?
There are 14 employees that are eligible for uniforms as we consider the outside employees. It was put into the 2014 budget to have the uniform. They already get protective clothing. This is just further to that. It's about $300 per employee right now to get the clothing, and then going forward, it would be on an exchange basis only, that the clothing would have to be worn out before that it was replaced. Currently, the town does pay for and launder coveralls for the employees in the field These, however, will be the requirement of them to take care of. And it was also for, these employees are seen in the public realm, going to people's homes. Many times they're not identified properly, or they're not looking presentable as a town employee. And this was a discussion that's been going on for several years now, and it just kind of all came together with this committee.
Councillor Ling?
Yeah, if I might. Assuming that the person has to wear this uniform, and then does he need to wear this uniform if in fact, quote, they're wearing coveralls?
Madam Treasurer?
Yes, the uniform would be worn because there's not all parts of the day that an employee would be wearing that coverall. It's when it's on they're on heavy equipment. There was a request from the mechanic that he not have to wear the coveralls all the time, given that he'd have this uniform and be able to work on them because the pants are very much consistent with what a coverall would be as well, so.
Thank you. Councillor Ling?
If I may, along
Yes.
that line, I'm thinking of winter time when the people are out doing snow work and snow plows and what have you. These would be people that would need to wear a uniform and they never come out of their truck. Is that what we're saying?
Madam Treasurer?
Yes, in the winter, they're out of their trucks, and they're out in the field a lot, and they actually are already provided with a winter jacket that has the same safety reflection material on it as well.
These do not include names on these, like some uniforms have embroidered names and what have you. These have just
Madam Treasurer?
embroidered Pelham
These
on
at
it.
this time just have the new logo on the shirt, on the sides of the pants, and it's also on the jacket.
For now, that's fine.
For now?
I have some other things.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So we've heard from the treasurer some of the changes with this coverall versus the uniform. Can we also hear just about the chief building officials, or the building inspectors? That is I would say a more of a change. Can we just hear a bit about that?
Madam Treasurer?
Yes, through you, we did discuss with the Director of Planning and also the CBO about possible having the uniforms for the inspectors as well, given that they're consistently going to sites and being representatives of the town, and that they have that consistent image of the town as well, and always look professional. And the inspectors actually really embraced that. They thought it was a better idea, that they looked like they were from the town of Pelham, and that they are part of, one place, and when they go to a home, they're well received because they're identifiable, not only in what they're wearing as a uniform, but also their vehicle now has the logo on the side, and that's the first time that those were put onto the vehicles as well. So their uniform is slightly different because they do not need the emergency reflective material. So it would be the blue cargo pants with a polo type shirt instead, and then again the logo on the side.
Very good.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, but not the CBO, not the chief building official, just the inspectors, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, what about the fire service? Our chief is wearing a uniform now. He doesn't have a tie on. We can add that to the policy. Maybe that's what Councillor Lane's going to add. But the fire service and bylaw, they have, is that covered under another policy, Mr. Chair? Can we hear about that maybe?
Do, Mr.
Chief, please.
Yes, we have a separate uniform policy for fire and bylaw services.
Okay, thank you. So I guess what I'm hearing is this is really a uniform for those full-time staff that interact with the public. So whether they're working in the cemeteries or doing water changes or on the trucks or on building sites, they are seen as from the town. And really a dress code for casual or summer employees is what I'm hearing, sort of that type of idea. And I think just on this, Mr. Chair, I think it's important to do that, to have a consistent look. Certainly with the branding is one thing, but we have had situations, and it actually is a concern for residents, where somebody knocks on the door and either says they're from the town and they're not, or somebody says, I thought they were from the town, that's why I let them on my property to look at whatever it was that they wanted to look at. So I think this goes a long way. to alleviate that, and I just wonder about letting this, if this gets approved, known in the community that, you know, town employees have this common look. How will that function, Mr. Chair? Can we hear about that from staff?
Yes, Mr. CEO, perhaps you can address, or Madam Treasurer?
Yeah, through you. We are working with Ms. McKnight from Home and to do a press release of that nature, just to get it out to the public media that this is going to be, you know, a consistent image starting June 1st. We'll also use our little community part of the Pelham News to post it inside there as well. Again, it'll be out on this front TV screen. And, you know, it's been in several of my reports to council over the last few months as well, just trying to get the message out there and clear and consistent. And we have, you know, at the counter, like you were suggesting, there's several occasions where we've got people that come in and say, someone just stopped at my house, I didn't know who they were, they said they're from the town, you know, I'm verifying a name or so forth. So this will help to resolve some of those issues as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else for a first time? Councillor Papp?
I'll be very quick through you to the Treasurer CEO. It's just so I'm clear, this uniform policy will mean that we'll purchase uniforms for all full-time employees, but seasonal and part-time will have to purchase their own?
Madam Treasurer?
They will have to purchase a shirt.
A shirt.
They will be required to wear blue pants, a navy blue
Right.
pant, and they'll be required to purchase a shirt. It's not unlike an uncommon other establishments that have part-timers because they come and go. It's a shirt that they purchase upon hire.
Well, the only reason I'm familiar with other municipalities where it's the municipal corporations, they cover the costs, whether it's seasonal, part-time, or full-time. I'm not, it's a minor point, but something, so they would purchase a shirt that's similar to what the others are wearing full-time as well. Okay.
Thank you. Others for a first time? Councillor Lane, I think you indicated you had more.
Oh, yes, thank you. Through you, people that are contracted by the town to do they fall under this policy? I.e. snow plowing in the winter time, I can think of at least some of that is contracted out, and I don't know what other jobs might be contracted out.
Madam Treasurer?
No, they wouldn't. These are just full-time employees of the town.
They're, okay, but they're actually representing the town in some respect, are they not, by doing town functions?
But they're contracted services, so they don't follow under our full-time umbrella.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything further?
Well,
Councillor Lane?
just one point, and it's really nothing serious, but we're doing this in an endeavor for the people that interact with the public to make our employees presentable and what have you, and that's fine, and everyone looks the same. That's also great. Have we given any consideration whatsoever to that same approach being taken in Town Hall, where people interact with the public, i.e. at the front desk, upstairs at the desk or whatever? Is it something that's been considered? Because I know that, I'm not saying all the girls or all the guys in Town Hall have to dress the same, but is that something that should be considered?
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer that question, the answer is no. When you come to Town Hall, you know you're dealing with a town employee in a town facility, so there isn't the same level of need for a uniform. However, we do encourage our staff to purchase clothing that we're working on, various clothing options with our branding on it. And I quite often will wear a polo with the town logo on it. I'm not required to, but I do it because I'm proud of it. And we'd encourage our employees also to participate on that level.
Anything further, Councillor Lane?
Just one question.
Certainly.
If I might. Has there been any thought given whatsoever to name tags for these workers that are out and about working for the town as an addition to maybe this?
Thank you. Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer the councillor's question, not a name tag per se, but we are working on staff identification. That will be, we're in the process of implementing that now. So all staff will have an ID card that if upon request, they can present to somebody to verify their employment with the town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything further? I have only one comment, and it's really not specific with regard to words, but we enter into this policy, obviously the budget that will go with that, it's going to cover the cost of the uniforms when they're originally purchased, but also the cost to maintain a standard of that uniform that will reflect well on the town. So I hope consideration has been given to how many changes there may be required in the course of time, particularly in those occupations where uniforms might become damaged or harmed in any way. I'm just saying that the budget might have to be considered carefully. Please, Madam Treasurer.
Yeah, we did do an investigation with other municipalities that are requiring their staff to wear uniforms and what was the typical uniform purchase in the first year. And also with some of the staff that we currently have, some of them are already buying this type of orange shirt with the reflective on it. And they were suggesting how many shirts that they would go through in a year. So we made sure that we had the budget in place for this year, and then going forward be on exchange basis, because we also learned that some of the pants don't wear as quick as others, and then they don't need to have that replaced next year. So we've got kind of like a model right now, and we're hoping to be able to stay within that, what we've budgeted.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just flip back here. We have a minor, well, any other comments with regard to that policy? Ready to call the question? All those in favor? Unanimously carried. Next item, moved by Councillor King and seconded by Councillor Durley, that the issue summary report water loading station and water hauler screening policy be received, and that Policy and Priorities Committee recommend to Council that policy S70103 for the water loading station and water hauler screening policy be approved, and that policy S702 be rescinded. Comments? I see none. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. One of the things I heard about this winter, especially as the winter dragged on, notification from one water hauler about the hours that the system operates, and that they were hoping that the hours would be expanded. So that's not the problem that we're trying to solve, right? We're trying to solve a screening system problem. How are those hours set on that facility? That and I recall the report came to council in terms of setting up those hours, different hours on Sundays, holidays, to try to offer, some regulation to that on Sundays and holidays for neighbors. Is there a policy for that? How do those hours get established?
Sure.
It's through you, I'm not, 2010, somewhere around there, we did a report to council. The results of the public open house that we held helped define what those hours would be. The residents in that area were completely involved in suggesting what hours should be there. I can tell you that if there's a hauler there and it's outside of those hours, my phone's the first one ringing, still to this day. So they are watching those hours. The system seems to be working very well under the hours that are there. It's only one hauler that we know that is wanting to change the hours a little bit to accommodate. And we understand this was a terrible winter for the fact that they just a lot of times couldn't get access to the station because of how cold things were and so forth. So we had a meeting with the haulers here. We discussed that the hours would not be looked at this time because it was what the residents in that area wanted. I hadn't heard anything back from them. We also sent a letter to them just reassuring them that these would be the hours. We've reassured the residents as well, but we did indicate to them if they did want to change it that they would have to make a recommendation to council because I didn't have the right to do that.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Questions with regard to the substance of the policy? Mr. Mayor, none?
No, my understanding is, it's working well. It was just the hours piece, and it wasn't here. Just wanted to know if that was a policy or not, so the treasurer's answered that very effectively. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Are we ready for calling the question? All those in favor? Thank you. It has been moved by Councillor Papp and seconded by Councillor Kersey that the issue summary report access to private property across municipally owned lands policy be received, and that Policy and Priorities Committee recommend to Council that policy S701-04, the access to private property access across municipally owned lands policy, be approved, and that policy Works 09 be rescinded. Comments? I see none. I'm ready for the question. All in favor? We have the adjournment motion. We may screw up yet. It has been moved by Councillor Durley and seconded by Councillor Kersey that the regular meeting of Policy and Priorities Committee be adjourned until the next regular committee scheduled for Monday, May 5th, 2014, unless sooner called by the mayor. All those in favor?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Oh, okay, okay.